Today we are stepping out of and for a bit and into another type of historical fiction. You should have picked up this paperwork earlier this week, and you're going to start by taking some notes before you listen to the story. So we are going to be listening to parts of the Legend of King Arthur. Yes, you need to write this at the top of the page. Then off to the side here, you can see I had to write a little bit small to fit everything, so please be neat about it. First of all, you need to write the fact that we are talking about fiction. And I would like you to go over that with blue. So fiction, what do we know about fiction? We know that fiction is not limited to facts, meaning there could be some facts in a fiction piece, but it can also include parts that are not facts. Now, if we go from talking about all kinds of fiction and we narrow it down and we realize that if we stop talking about all fiction and we just talk about one type of fiction is called historical fiction. This should sound familiar. Historical fiction tells you in the name of it that history is very important to the story. So historical fiction has a realistic story from the past. That's Anne of Green Gables. Anne of Green Gables just lands in historical fiction. But there are other more specific types of historical fiction. And again, one kind of historical fiction, that is fiction. So one kind of historical fiction is a legend. Now we get down to King Arthur. So King Arthur is a legend. What is a legend? A legend or group of legends are stories about larger than life characters. They're able to do things that you don't expect normal people to be able to do. That's the idea of larger than life. So legends are stories about larger than life characters, and usually that character is going to save their nation or their people. You need to be sure that you have this information copied down so that you can trace the fact that a legend is a type of historical fiction, and historical fiction is just one genre of stories that don't have to be totally true. And then, before we start listening, today we are going to listen to part of the King Arthur legend that gives us some background before tomorrow's section, which ties right into Anne. So today we're just getting the background of sort of the time period that we're talking about and some of the parts of this legend that are going to be repeated no matter which variation you hear. So legends, because they're based usually in the distant past, there are lots of different variations to the story. Within those variations, there are repeated characters and actions, and especially the beginnings of the story in a legend. The beginnings are very often going to share many, many similarities, no matter how many little tweaks and changes to the details there may be. So at the beginning of the Legend of King Arthur, there are some parts that always show up. Some of that is included in the picture that you are going to be coloring. I want you to color this picture as you listen today, and if you have time, you can get started on this picture. So you don't have a text to follow along with today. You just color the pictures. And again, color all the details, not with marker. I'd like this colored with colored pencil. And realistically, this is a path, this is grass. The gravestones are going to be gray. You've got some bushes in there. You can decide if this is clouds or trees in the distance. You're going to have blue sky back there. Maybe you want to have the sun sort of coming in and hitting the sword, or some sort of a rainbow to draw attention to the sword, because as you listen to the legend, you will, if it doesn't immediately sound familiar, you will find as soon as you start listening to the legend of King Arthur, there are many bits of this legend that show up in our daily lives. This story is referred to in a lot of advertisements, in a lot of movies, in a lot of other books, not just Anne of Green Gables, but this is the type of story that Anne thinks is very romantic.